Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to be moving on to chapter 12, 2D shapes, or that also stands for two-dimensional shapes. And we're working on page 697. I'll write that here on the top for us. And we're on lesson 12.2, describe plane shapes. So let's take a look at that word plane. And so the word plane shapes basically means a flat shape. So it's not an object such as a cube, which is a three-dimensional shape. And so these are flat shapes that you see here on this diagram, this house on the right side. So let's read our problem. An architect draws plans for houses, stores, offices, and other buildings. Look at the shapes in the drawing at the right. So go ahead and pause the video and think about some of the shapes that you see to the right. Okay, if you said triangle, you're correct. The roof there is forming a triangle here. Tri meaning three. I see some rectangles, and the house, this part of the house is a rectangle. We were to draw that line straight across. And I see some other rectangles on this side of the house. And the door forms two long rectangles. So those are all the different plane shapes that I see. Now a plane shape, it has points that connect, and then sometimes the lines will be straight, sometimes they'll be curved, sometimes they'll have both. So if I see here, this window has that curved path, whereas all the other shapes in this picture form lines. And so we're going to be talking about some new vocabulary words today, and we're going to look at the photo, or the picture on the right, to help us. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly erase these so that we can locate all the new vocabulary words on the side there. So let's go through all of the different words. And chapter 12 has a lot of vocabulary words. So we're going to practice these when we're in school. So first we have point. It is an exact position or location. So on my picture, this would be a point. It's where two line segments connect. And then we have many other points, and I can draw them here. And so a point is that exact position there. You can see on the line here that the point is located in the middle of that line. So the next vocabulary word is line. It's a straight path, and it continues in both directions, and it never ends. So these arrows show that it's going to continue on. Now some lines will have these end points. So we can see our third new word there, end points. And you can see that there are 2 points at the end of the line. And I kind of think of those end points as a stop sign. And they stop that line. So we have a lot of end points here. We can connect these lines, and they're forming a line segment, which is actually our next word. So line segment, next vocabulary words, segment means a section. It's straight again, just like a line, and it shows part of a line, and it has 2 end points. So line segments stop at the end points. Kind of think of that each of them is like a stop sign at the end, whereas a line continues on in both directions. And then the last vocabulary word for this lesson is ray. So the ray is a straight line. It has one end point where it stops, but then the other end of the line continues on in one direction. And again, this is going to be part of a line. So I kind of think of this end point as the sun, and it's shining its ray out from it. So that kind of helps me remember what a ray is. Okay, so let's go on to our square here. Some plane shapes are made by connecting line segments at their end points. One example is a square. So describe a square using math words. So a square has, well, you can go ahead and count them. How many line segments? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has 4 line segments because each segment is representing the side, one side of the square. And the line segments meet only at their endpoints. So they'll meet there at their endpoints. Okay, so let's go here real quick to this math talk. Why can you not measure the length of a line? So look back up here in your definition. Why couldn't you measure a line? Well, it goes on in both directions endlessly. So it would continue and it would not end. So you wouldn't be able to measure that. Whereas a line segment, you would, because you would line your ruler up at each of the endpoints and see how long it measures. Okay, let's go on to some more vocabulary words where we're talking about these plane shapes again. And again, we have two-dimensional shapes. So if we take a look up here, the width shows that way, the up and down vertical line here. And the length is that horizontal line. So we have length and width of a shape. Now, some shapes are closed. That means they start at one end and they end at that same point. So for example, if I were to trace this circle, I'm starting at this point, and if I were to continue around, it would end at that point. And I kind of think of it as it's closed. You can't get inside of that shape. There's no door to go inside of that shape. In this space, we're going to draw some more examples of closed shapes. So you can draw some with me. And it's kind of fun making closed shapes because as long as they're touching and they're finishing up at that same point, you know it's closed. Again, there's no little pathway to get inside of that shape. So go ahead and make a bunch of different closed shapes. And you don't have to follow along in the exact ones that I'm making. You can make your own. Just make sure that they're nice and closed and you wouldn't be able to get inside if you were trying to get inside of them. An open shape is down below. Remember, you can pause the video if you're still drawing some closed shapes. And so an open shape, as you can see here, it does not start and end at the same point. So for example, if I were to go to this letter L here, looks like an L, I would start here and I would draw the line and it ends at a different point. It's not closing at that same point. So all of these are open shapes, and I kind of think of it as you can get inside into the middle of those shapes. So go ahead and draw some more examples of open shapes. Okay, so now that you know the difference between closed and open shapes, we're going to give this one a try, and then we'll go on to some other problems. So make sure that you're following along in your book as we're going. Is the plane shape at the right a closed shape or an open shape? Explain how you know. Well, let's try. So if I start here and I draw my line and I continue following this shape, it's going to end at the same spot that it started. So that's what I can write for my answer. So this shape is a closed shape. I know because it begins and ends at the same point. So you may pause the video and finish writing that if you haven't. Okay, let's go down and we're going to do some practice problems together, and then you'll open up your PMT and do some practice problems with that. So share and show. Number 1, write how many line segments the shape has. Well, I see here 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 line segments. All right, so now we have to circle all the words that describe the shape. See if you remember from the beginning of our video, and you can turn your page back to 697. And I'll write that at the top. If you wanted to look at some of those vocabulary words and see if you know what number 2 here, is that a ray or is that a point? Pause the video, give numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 a try, and then come back and check with me. Okay, if you said that the number 2 is a ray, you are correct. 3 is a closed shape. It starts at the same point that it ends at. 4 is an open shape. And 5 is a line segment because it has those two end points that let me know it stops at each end, whereas a line would continue on in both directions endlessly. All right, so now we're going to give numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9 a try. You're going to write whether the shape is opened or closed. So go ahead and pause the video and give those a try. Okay, so for number 6, this shape is open because I can go right inside there and it does not start and end at the same point. Number 7 is closed. If I start here and make a line around, it closes up. Number 8 is closed. Same thing. I can start at one point and continue on, and I'll end at that same point that I began at. And number 9 is open. I can walk right inside that shape. So how did you do on those? Okay, let's go on. Now I'd like you to pause the video and give these a try. Numbers 10 through 13, you're going to write how many line segments the shape has. And for 14 through 17, you're going to write either open or closed. Go ahead, pause the video, give it a try, and come back and check with me. Okay, if you said 10 is 4 line segments, you are correct. When I have a shape like this, I like to trace and count 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 11, a little tricky. Again, I have to draw them. I do kind of like a connect the dots there with my line segments so I don't forget how many there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one had 8 line segments. 12 is 4 line segments. That's actually a trapezoid. Trapezoids have one pair of parallel lines. That means that they run side by side, those two lines, and they would never touch. And number 13, I'm going to trace this one. I always start in my upper left-hand corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So whenever you have a shape that is a little unusual or you know it's going to be more than 4 sides, definitely trace it just to make sure. So how did you do on those? Were you able to count them? All right, let's go down below. We have a closed shape here. We have an open shape. Looks like the letter E there. Closed and closed. All right, so you're going to now do some practice problems on the PMT 12.1. So give those a try. Don't forget to turn in when you're finished so that your teacher knows that you've completed it. Have a great day.